In the mountains of West Virginia, there's a bridge that locals don't talk about after dark. A place that doesn't show up on GPS. A bridge that connects nothing to nowhere. They call it Black Hollow Bridge, and for over a century, it's been haunted by something that isn't human. Truckers say they've seen him, a tall horned figure standing dead center on the steel bridge in the fog. His skin cracked like black glass, his eyes glowing orange, smoke drifting from his spine as if his body's burning from the inside out. Every time someone tries to cross, he turns his head, and that's when the lights go out. They call him the Devil of Black Hollow. Mara Lee, documentary filmmaker. She drove 12 hours from Boston to reach a town called Ashburn Ridge, a quiet place surrounded by pine woods and forgotten roads. Her YouTube channel, Urban Shadows, was built on exploring real American horror legends. This one was supposed to be her biggest story yet. She didn't know she'd never leave Ashburn Ridge alive. Inside the local diner, everyone stopped talking the moment she asked, "Can anyone tell me where Black Hollow Bridge is?" Old men froze. A waitress whispered a prayer. Only one voice answered, gravelly, old and calm. Old Henry.
"You don't must mess around that bridge, girl. That thing out there ain't no ghost. It's something that remembers."
Remembers what?
Who built it? And what they buried inside it.
That night, Mara rented a small cabin by the river, half a mile from the bridge. She opened her laptop, started researching old county records. And there it was, a construction ledger from 1887, the year the bridge was built. At the bottom of the page, a single line, "One life for the crossing." It is done below it, a signature scratched out with something sharp, maybe a knife. Mara leaned back. The wind rattled her window. Then the lights flickered. She froze. In the reflection of the glass, she didn't see her own face. She saw a horned silhouette, orange eyes glowing in the dark. Then, nothing. She grabbed her camera, started recording. "I think I just saw someone outside my cabin," she whispered. "No lights, no sound, just fog." She replayed the footage. The screen glitched. Static filled the room. Then a voice came through the speakers, deep, metallic. "I remember the blood that built me." Her laptop shut off on its own. The clock stopped at 3:07 a.m. The air smelled faintly of smoke. The next morning, Mara went to the county archives in town. Old, dusty books lined the shelves. She found newspaper clippings from 1887, all mentioning accidents during bridge construction. But one headline stood out: "Local drifter missing after ritual fire at worksite." The article mentioned a man named Elias Crane, a traveling preacher from New Orleans, who led the workers in a secret ceremony. A note scribbled in the margin read, "He wasn't a preacher. He was something else." 1887. The bridge project was cursed. Every beam bent. Every rope snapped. 3 men died in a single week. Elias Crane promised salvation. He told the workers,
"The land here don't want iron. It wants blood."
That night, in the pouring rain, they dragged a man out of the forest, a tall drifter with horn-like growths on his head. People said he wasn't human, that his skin was black as stone and smoke rose from his back when he breathed. They slit his throat beneath the bridge beams and sealed his body inside the foundation. By sunrise, the bridge finally stood firm. But the next morning, the foreman vanished, and the nights since then were never silent again. They say his spirit fused with the bridge that night, that his body became the steel, his soul. the smoke that never stops rising. And every 70 years, he wakes up hungry. The morning after her discovery, Mara couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching her. Her phone battery drained from 80% to 0 in minutes. Her car alarm went off by itself. And every time she looked toward the woods, the fog seemed to move closer. She drove into town to speak with Sheriff Daniels, a tired man with eyes that carried too many secrets. He met her on the porch of his station, cigarette trembling in his hand. "Sheriff Daniels, you're the girl with the camera, huh?" Mara: "Yes, sir. I'm making a documentary about Black Hollow Bridge Sheriff." Interrupting: "Turn that car around. Leave it be." He pointed to a wall inside the station, a dozen missing posters. Sheriff: "Folks disappear out there every 70 years. 1,887, 1,957. Now it's 2,027. You see the pattern?" Mara: "That's a coincidence." Sheriff: "You keep telling yourself that, sweetheart. But the Hollow keeps its own calendar, and it's about to mark another name." He turned away, muttering something under his breath, a prayer or a warning. Later that day, Mara visited old Henry again, the man from the diner. He lived in a creaking farmhouse surrounded by rusting car parts and dead pine. He invited her inside, poured her black coffee, and stared hard at her recorder. Henry: "You're looking for the thing on the bridge." Mara: "I'm looking for the truth." Henry: "Same damn thing. And that's what gets people killed." He reached for a drawer and pulled out something old and heavy, a small iron cross, black with age and scorched at the edges. Henry: "He don't like iron. Can't pass through it. They say the bridge is his cage. Iron beams hold his spirit in. But if you go out there..." He places the cross in her hand. "Keep this close. It might buy you time." That night, Mara sat by the fire in her cabin, recording her notes for the documentary. Mara, voice recording: "Locals claim a horned man guards the bridge, built on human sacrifice in 1887. There's a missing preacher, a vanished foreman, and now a sheriff who believes it's all happening again." She paused. The fire popped. Mara: "If this thing feeds every 70 years, tonight might be the night." She laughed nervously, but her voice shook. Outside, the fog thickened like smoke. The storm came fast, lightning cracking the sky, rain slamming the windows. Through the downpour, Mara saw it, a silhouette standing on the road near the bridge, too tall, too still. She grabbed her camera and zoomed in. There it was, the horned creature, drenched in rain, its black skin glistening, smoke rising even through the water, its eyes burning orange like molten fire trapped in glass. It tilted its head and began to walk toward her. Mara, whispering, "Oh my God, it's real!" Her camera feed glitched, red static pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Then, total darkness. The power grid for the entire valley went down. Every house in Ashburn Ridge went dark. The sheriff's phone lines died, street lights flickered, and from every direction, people reported the same thing. A smell of burning metal, a low humming sound, and a shadow moving across the fog. Inside her cabin, Mara's flashlight began to shake. The batteries hissed and melted in her hand. She reached for her camera again, but the lens was cracked from the inside. She turned on her phone to record audio only, and in the darkness, a voice came through again, clear and cold. "Creature," distorted whisper. "You remember me now?" Child of the bridge, Mara froze. She'd never told anyone her grandmother was born in Ashburn Ridge. Her hands trembled as the fog seeped through the door cracks, curling like fingers, reaching for her face. Mara, panicked whisper, "What do you want from me?" The voice grew louder, almost behind her ear. "Creature, a life for a bridge. The promise was never broken." And then a hand, long and blackened, touched her shoulder. Cut to black. The next morning, the town of Black Hollow woke up to a heavy silence that didn't feel right. Fog still lingered after sunrise, thick, gray, and clinging to the ground like smoke from a dying fire. Sheriff Ray Collins stood by the edge of the river, staring at the bridge that now looked older somehow. The steel beams were rusted and warped as if decades had passed overnight. He muttered, "No damn storm can do that." But what truly froze him were the claw marks. Deep gouges ripped into the railings, stretching nearly the entire length of the bridge. Each mark was too wide, too deep, and perfectly spaced, like they'd been carved by something massive and patient. The police report called it vandalism, but the locals, especially the elders, whispered a different word, the Hollowed One. By dusk, Amber, the teenage girl who'd lost her father to the bridge weeks earlier, was out there again. Her mother had forbidden it, but Amber needed answers. She brought her phone, recording a live stream for her small paranormal YouTube channel. The thumbnail read, "I'm going to Black Hollow Bridge at night. Pray for me." The stream had barely started when the fog rolled back in, unnaturally fast, like a living wall. She panned her phone across the bridge and whispered, "If there's something here, show yourself." For a few seconds, nothing. Just the sound of water below. Then came the tapping, 3 slow taps against steel. Tap, 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 like fingernails dragging across metal. Amber froze. The live stream chat went wild, comments flooding in. "Did y'all hear that? Run, girl, run! Look behind you!" The camera shook. The fog behind her shifted, darker, heavier. And then it appeared. A tall, horned humanoid, its cracked obsidian skin reflecting the orange flicker of her phone's light. 2 glowing eyes like molten glass stared right into the lens. Smoke drifted from its back, slow serpentine tendrils coiling into the night. Amber screamed, dropped the phone, and ran. The camera landed face up, and for a split second before the stream cut out, viewers saw its arms move, stretching, reaching, almost scraping the ground like blades. Then came the sound, a low, guttural roar that made every dog in town start barking at once. The next day, Sheriff Collins and his team found Amber's phone still recording, battery dead, but the footage intact. What they didn't find was Amber. They reviewed the video in the station. The footage froze at the moment the creature appeared. Collins leaned in close, squinting at the screen. He whispered, "That can't be human." But the deputy beside him pointed out something even stranger. In the background of the frame, across the bridge, faintly visible through the fog, were the remains of an old wooden structure, a cabin, one that, according to town records, hadn't existed for over 100 years. At night, Collins returned alone, armed, desperate, and determined to find the girl. He crossed the bridge step by step, his flashlight beam trembling over wet steel. Every few feet, he saw black handprints, burned into the railing. When he reached the center, the mist parted just enough to reveal something beneath the bridge, a face, submerged in the water, staring up with hollow eyes. Collins aimed his flashlight, and the reflection moved. Not the water, The creature was climbing up. It emerged slowly, its long arms pulling its obsidian body over the side, water dripping off like oil. It stood tall, horns scraping the metal beam above, and then it spoke. Its voice was deep, like stones grinding underwater. "You built this bridge over my grave." Collins fired 3 rounds. The bullets hit, but each one melted on impact, dissolving into black smoke. The creature tilted its head, and with one movement, it swung its arm. The sheriff was thrown backward, crashing through the railing. As he fell, the last thing he saw was the monster's face, cracked, ancient, and burning from within like molten rock. By morning, the bridge was sealed off again. The sheriff was gone. Amber was never found. But the live stream, her final video, was downloaded and re-uploaded thousands of times. And if you listen closely to the ending, past the static, just before it cuts out, you can hear a whisper, layered beneath the noise. "I am the hollow beneath your feet." 2 days after the sheriff's disappearance, the state authorities sealed off Black Hollow Bridge. They claimed it was unstable, that the steel supports were corroded, the structure unsafe. But the people who lived there knew the truth. Something beneath the bridge had awakened. News reporters came and went. Internet sleuths flooded the town, hunting for the next viral mystery. But those who stayed overnight never stayed long, because at midnight the fog returned, and when it did, the air turned cold enough to freeze breath mid-air, and the bridge began to whisper. No one remembered where the name Black Hollow originally came from, until Martha Kane, the local librarian, found an old box of documents in the town's archives. It was dated 1813, the year the first settlers arrived. Inside was a single journal, its pages soaked in old ink and blackened fingerprints. The first entry read, "We have crossed the mountains. The land here is rich and dark. The elders of the native tribes warned us not to settle near the hollow. They say it was a grave for the horned god of fire." Martha read further, voice trembling, as she recorded the discovery for the Historical Society. "They told us the river is cursed. Beneath it lies the body of a guardian, buried in obsidian and smoke. If disturbed, it will rise again to reclaim its bridge of bones." According to the journal, the settlers ignored the warnings. They built the original wooden bridge over what they believed was just a dried-up ravine. But during construction, strange things began happening. Workers went missing. Horses were found dead, eyes burned black. And at night, they said, they could hear screaming from beneath the earth. On the final day of construction, lightning struck the bridge. Out of a clear sky, it burned for hours. When the flames finally died, only one worker was left alive. His name was Elias Harper, and his testimony became local legend. "It rose from the smoke," Elias wrote, "tall and horned, skin like broken glass, eyes like fire. It spoke not in words, but in the sound of thunder. It said, 'Your bridge crosses the grave of gods. I will come for what you have stolen.'" After that, Elias vanished into the woods. The journal ended there. No signature, no final entry. Martha Kane brought the journal to the town council, but no one believed her. They dismissed it as settler superstition. But later that night, she called a friend, her voice shaken. "The ink, it's wet again." The words, "They're changing."
Words.
Her phone went dead mid-sentence. By morning, her house was empty. On her desk, the journal was open to a new entry that hadn't been there before. "He is free again?" By now the fog was thicker than ever. The town was silent. Dogs refused to go near the river, and those who drove past the bridge at night swore they saw a tall silhouette standing in the mist, motionless, horns cutting through the fog like knives. Truck drivers avoided the route. Locals built new detours, but the bridge remained like a wound that wouldn't heal. One night, a storm rolled over Black Hollow. Lightning flashed across the sky, and for a moment, the entire town saw it. The creature, standing in the middle of the bridge, smoke rising from its spine, hands dragging long black streaks across the steel. It was watching, not moving, just watching the town below, as if choosing who it would take next. The elders gathered the next morning in the old chapel. One of them, Isaac Redfeather, a descendant of the tribe that once lived on this land, spoke with a heavy heart. "It's not a monster," he said. "It's a guardian. We buried him under the hollow to keep the fire of the underworld contained. When the settlers built the bridge, they sealed their fate. They built a road over a god's grave." He paused, looking toward the fog creeping outside the chapel windows. Now the bridge remembers. That night, Isaac performed the ancient rite his ancestors once used to calm the guardian, a ritual involving smoke, river stones, and fire. He went alone to the bridge, chanting the old words, the air shimmering with heat as the fog thickened. The creature appeared again, rising from the mist, its horns glowing faintly orange, eyes like burning coals. Isaac held his ground, shouting over the storm, "You were a protector once. You guarded the hollow, not destroyed it." The creature tilted its head. The sound of cracking stone filled the air. For the briefest moment, it hesitated. Its smoke slowed. Its body flickered like it remembered. But then something inside it ignited. Fury, centuries old. It raised its arm and swung, and the bridge lit up in a burst of orange fire. The next morning, all that remained of Isaac was his charred prayer beads and a single mark on the bridge railing, a handprint burned into the metal. The curse was never lifted. The hollowed one was awake now, and the bridge had become its home once more, a place where the living and the dead were separated only by fog and a single wrong step. The following week, the air around Black Hollow grew heavier, thicker, as though something unseen was pressing down on the entire valley. The news reported unusual weather patterns, rising river temperatures, sudden lightning storms, and an eerie red glow in the night sky. The townsfolk didn't need scientists to explain it. The elders had already warned them. A blood moon was coming, and with it, the hollowed one would walk freely. That evening, a crimson haze bled across the horizon. The moon rose swollen and dark, its surface veined like living flesh. Every sound in town seemed amplified. The creak of old shutters, the groan of trees, even the faint hum of the river below the bridge. Inside her trailer, Amber's mother, Helen, stared out the window, whispering a prayer. Her daughter had been missing for 12 days. But tonight, she swore she heard her voice, a faint call echoing from the direction of the bridge. "Mom! Mom, come find me!" Helen's eyes widened. She grabbed her coat, flashlight trembling in her hand, and stepped out into the night. The bridge shimmered in the glow, the steel turning the color of old blood. The fog rolled thick across it, but through it, faint, flickering lights appeared. They looked like lanterns, swinging slowly back and forth as if guiding her forward. Helen took one cautious step after another. She whispered, "Amber? Honey, is that you?" The closer she got, the louder the river became, rushing violently beneath her, bubbling and gurgling like something alive. Then she heard footsteps, behind her this time, slow, heavy, measured. She turned. and standing there only a few feet away was her daughter, pale, soaked, eyes glowing faintly orange. "You shouldn't have come," Amber whispered. Helen froze. Her flashlight flickered, and for an instant Amber's face changed. Her smile cracked open wider than humanly possible. Smoke leaked from her skin, and behind her, rising from the fog, came the Hollowed One. The creature towered above them both, horns curling toward the red moon. Its cracked obsidian chest pulsed with molten light, the smoke from its spine writhing like tendrils. When it spoke, its voice split the air. Blood returns to blood. Helen screamed and ran, but the fog chased her like a living thing, swallowing the road behind her. Everywhere she turned, she saw faces, human faces, half-formed in the mist, whispering her name. She made it halfway across before something grabbed her ankle. Cold, iron grip. She fell hard, the flashlight skidding across the bridge, and from beneath the steel she saw hands, hundreds of them reaching upward from the cracks, pulling, clawing, trying to drag her down. At that same moment across town, the few remaining residents huddled inside the old church. Isaac Redfeather's cousin, Daniel, had taken his place as the new elder. He was younger, skeptical, but he knew one thing for certain. That bridge ain't a bridge anymore. It's a doorway. He turned to the group, a mechanic, a teacher, and 2 teenagers, and said, "The only way to close it is to burn it again." But this time, with blood, they armed themselves with torches, flares, and gasoline. By midnight, they stood at the edge of the bridge, staring into the churning fog. One of the teens whispered, "Are you sure it's still out there?" Daniel didn't answer. He was already lighting the first torch. As they approached, the fog began to swirl, forming a vortex over the river. Lightning flashed, revealing the creature in full form, rising from the depths like a god of molten rock and smoke. Its roar split the storm. The ground trembled. It reached for them, claws dragging sparks across steel. Daniel shouted over the chaos, "Now! Light it! Light it!" They threw the torches and flares, fire racing across the bridge, gasoline igniting
Amber?
in waves.
Is that you?
Flames climbed the steel rails, wrapping around the creature's limbs like serpents of light. For a moment, it looked as if the fire was working. The Hollowed One recoiled, smoke boiling off its body. But then it laughed, a deep, earth-shaking sound, and the flames turned black. The black fire spread backward, racing toward the survivors. They scattered, Daniel grabbing one of the teens and diving behind a concrete barrier. The bridge was now glowing, steel bending, rivets popping, as if the entire structure was alive. And through the chaos, they saw something within the smoke. Hundreds of faces, men, women, children, the souls of the settlers who had first built the bridge. Their mouths moved in unison, whispering the same phrase over and over, "Forgive us, forgive us." Daniel raised his eyes toward the burning creature. "You want blood?" he shouted. "Then take mine." He slashed his palm and let the blood fall to the bridge's surface. For a second, everything stopped. The fire, the wind, even the fog. The creature stared at him, tilting its head, the molten glow in its eyes dimming slightly, almost remembering. Then came a sound, a low guttural groan from beneath the bridge as the river below began to boil. The fire turned white, the fog shrieked, and the Hollowed One fell to its knees. The bridge began to collapse. When the storm cleared, the bridge was gone, half sunk into the river, flames extinguished by the rising water. Daniel was found unconscious near the riverbank at dawn. He had survived, but the creature was gone. or so they thought. That night, as Daniel lay in the hospital, he opened his eyes for the first time since the fire. The nurse said he whispered one thing, just 2 words, before the monitors went flat. "It's waiting." 30 years passed. Black Hollow faded from maps, its stories buried under asphalt and time. The river calmed, the fog thinned, and a new generation grew up believing the bridge was nothing more than a local ghost story, a myth parents told to keep their kids away from the river at night. But history has a way of rebuilding itself. In 2023, a corporation called Ridgeway Infrastructure Group bought the land and announced plans to build a new bridge, a sleek steel and glass marvel that would modernize the region and connect 2 counties. They called it the Black Hollow Bypass. The mayor called it progress, but the few remaining elders, those who remembered the fire, the disappearances, called it sacrilege. Construction began that summer. Bulldozers dug into the earth where the old bridge once stood, breaking through layers of soot and ash. And on the second day, a worker struck something hard beneath the soil. Now, at first, they thought it was old metal, maybe a remnant of the previous bridge. But when they cleared the dirt, they found black stone, smooth as glass, warm to the touch, and covered in carvings. The markings were ancient, twisted symbols that seemed to move when the light hit them. The workers laughed, called it voodoo junk, and tossed it aside. But that night, the river rose higher than it had in decades, and by morning, one of the workers was gone. All that remained of his safety vest was a smear of black ash near the water's edge. The foreman, Dale Monroe, tried to keep it quiet, said the man probably ran off. But then the others started hearing things. Voices beneath the bridge, footsteps on the scaffolding at 3 a.m., and that smell, burning metal and wet stone, drifting up from the riverbed. Security footage from the site caught a single frame of something moving in the fog one night. A shape, tall, horned, eyes glowing faintly orange. The camera glitched, then went black. A week later, the first inspection team arrived. Among them was Dr. Claire Redfeather, a historian and archaeologist, granddaughter of the man who tried to destroy the bridge decades ago. She warned the contractors, "You're digging where you shouldn't." My grandfather tried to stop this, but Dale shrugged. "Lady, this bridge is worth $40 million. We're not stopping for a bedtime story." That night, she stayed behind alone, studying one of the black stones under lamplight. It was marked with a spiral pattern, and in the center, a burned handprint. The same handprint her grandfather had left behind in the 1980s. As she traced it with her finger, the stone pulsed warm, and from the river below, she heard it, a low, vibrating whisper that made her chest tighten. "You built it again." Her lamp flickered, the air thickened, and through the glass wall of the site office, she saw the fog rolling in fast. The next morning, half the construction crew didn't show up. Their equipment was still running, radio still on, but their trucks were found empty, doors wide open, near the bridge site. The only trace left was a trail of wet footprints leading straight to the river. The local news reported it as a freak storm incident, but Dr. Claire Redfeather knew better. She spent the next night at the riverbank, camera in hand, reciting the words from her grandfather's notes, the same ones he used to summon and confront the hollowed one. Lightning flashed, and there it was, the creature rising from the water like a ghost of the past. horned, massive, obsidian-skinned, with smoke coiling from its spine. Its body shimmered between physical and spectral, as if caught between worlds. It looked at her, and for a second its head tilted, recognition in its glowing eyes. "You carry his blood," it said, "the one who burned my bridge." Claire's voice trembled. "You were a guardian once. You don't have to destroy." The creature's cracked mouth opened, releasing a low growl that shook the steel beams around her. "I guard the hollow, and the hollow is mine." The bridge began to twist, bending like it was alive. Cables snapped, bolts tore free. The entire structure shuddered as if something massive was clawing its way through from below. Dr. Claire screamed, running for the embankment as fire erupted from the river, black, swirling flames that burned cold. The creature stood in the inferno, spreading its arms as molten light poured from its cracks. Blood built the bridge. Blood must drown it. With that, it slammed its fists into the steel, shattering the support beams like glass. The bridge split apart, sections falling into the river below. Claire barely escaped as the ground beneath her collapsed. She crawled to the top of the ridge, turning just in time to see the creature fade into the smoke once more, leaving only the sound of whispering wind. Days later, government officials fenced off the entire site. They called it an unexplained structural failure. No bodies were recovered. The company dissolved. And that night, in the empty valley, a single red light glowed beneath the fog, right where the bridge once stood. Then another, and another, like eyes, awakening. The hollow remembers. The hollow never sleeps. By the time dawn cracked through the storm clouds, Black Hollow Bridge was crawling with smoke, blood, and sirens. Sheriff Dalton's patrol lights spun red through the fog, glinting off the river like spilled wine. But it was too late. Half the search team that went into the forest the night before never came back. The ones who did came back wrong. Their eyes were hollow, their mouths muttering the same phrase over and over again. "He remembers us." Dalton stumbled upon them standing in the middle of the road. 5 of his men, soaked to the bone, their boots leaving black footprints on the asphalt. As he approached, their heads turned in perfect unison, like broken puppets jerking to life. "Deputy," hoarse whisper. "He's awake. The bridge remembers who we are." Narrator, tense. Then they all screamed one long blood-curdling note as black smoke burst from their mouths. The same smoke that rose from the creature's spine. Meanwhile, Pastor Greg was standing at the far end of the bridge, clutching his cross and muttering prayers he barely remembered. He'd come to face it, to end what began a century ago. Because in the archives of Hollow Creek Church, he'd found something no one else had read in decades. A faded journal belonging to Reverend Elijah Thorne, dated 1899. It described how the settlers built this bridge over a native burial ground, desecrating sacred land where they'd buried a horned guardian spirit, a creature meant to protect the river until man sealed it under steel and stone. The bridge itself, Thorne wrote, was the coffin. Narrator, low, reverent tone, and every drop of blood spilled upon it. Every death, every sin was feeding it. The ground began to quake. The river boiled, and from beneath the cracked asphalt, black smoke began to leak upward, forming a silhouette, a horned shape, rising higher and higher. Dalton screamed for his men to fall back, but the bridge's railings snapped like ribs splitting open, and there it stood again, the creature of cracked obsidian skin, glowing orange eyes and horns that scraped the dawn. Only now It wasn't bound to flesh. It was the bridge. The cables twisted like veins. The asphalt pulsed like living skin. The creature, distorted growl, overlapping voices. "You buried me. Now you will join me." Narrator, shouting over chaos. The entire structure began to fall apart. Cars tumbled into the river below, swallowed by mist. Dalton grabbed the pastor's arm, pulling him back as the center span collapsed in slow motion. The creature roared, a sound that wasn't just heard, it was felt, vibrating through their bones. Then just as suddenly, silence. The fog rolled in thick, and the bridge was gone. No trace of the monster, no bodies, just stillness. But in the weeks that followed, people driving the new bypass road at night swore they saw something in the distance, a tall, horned shadow standing over where the bridge once stood, its orange eyes glowing through the mist. They say if you stop your car and turn off your engine, you can still hear the bridge breathing.